What is up, guys? It is Styx here, and today I'm going to be going over a fantastic Prismatic Hunter build for the final shape. This build is going to show off its strengths in any sort of content where you can play even remotely in melee, and in addition to that, it also grants a superb survivability even in comparison to something like Strand Titan, due to the amount of buffs you can place on yourself and the debuffs you can place on your enemies. Going right in, we're going to obviously be playing on the Prismatic Hunter subclass. The super we will be going with is Golden Gun Marksman. This will allow us to basically, you summon a gun, you get 3 shots. If you use Celestial Nighthawk, you get 1 shot, does a lot of damage, and while you are radiant, this deals some extra damage. We will be radiant a lot on this build. Our abilities for our dodge, we will go with the Gambler's Dodge for regenerating our melee whenever we dodge near an enemy target. Triple Jump for the versatility. Combination Blow, which is a quick strike that increases your melee damage when defeating a target up to 3 times, and instantly refills your class ability and a small amount of health whenever you kill a target with this melee. This basically means you can infinitely chain your melee and your dodge ability, and that brings a lot of repeatability to the table, as you will be infinitely chaining those 2 things and combining them with any exotics, fragments, and aspects we use in this build. You're also going to be using the Grapple Grenade. This has 2 purposes for me, 3 really. One is that you can melee with the grapple. Another one is that this allows you to generate tangles, which will have some synergy with some of the seasonal mods we are going to be looking at. And then the third thing is I enjoy this for general versatility, getting around the map in a variety of different PvE activities, and it can be used some pretty clutch raid mechanic type things if you need to get around super quickly. The aspects we'll be going with are Stylish Executioner. Defeating a target affected by any elemental debuff grants invisibility and true sight. This also gives us a weaken effect on their next punch while invisible. And Winter Shroud, which dodging slows nearby targets, and slowing targets briefly increases your class ability regeneration. The class ability regeneration is essentially a non-factor here, but slowing nearby targets is extremely useful. I'm sure you can see in the background clips here, I am freezing targets because of how frequently I can dodge around. For those who are curious, slowing does in fact allow you to proc Stylish Executioner, and then it also, due to Winter Shroud providing slow and providing freeze, which then becomes shatter, allows you to stun 2 champion types right off the bat. The slow will allow you to stun overload champions, and the freeze and then shatter will allow you to stun unstoppable champions. After that point, all you have to cover is anti-barrier, which don't worry, we will be doing that with Facet of Dawn. Powered melee hits against targets makes you radiant. Radiant weapon hits allow you to stun anti-barrier. And then in addition to that, this allows powered melee final blows to make you and nearby allies radiant. The radiant is significant enough that you will be able to get continuous usage and damage out of it. And of course, this boosts our Marksman Golden Gun pretty significantly. We will also be using Facet of Courage so that our Arc, Solar, and Void abilities deal increased damage to targets afflicted with darkness debuffs, so any targets who are slowed take extra damage on top of all of the other bonus damage that we deal. Facet of Protection here is very useful. While surrounded by combatants, we're more resistant to incoming damage, and while Transcendent, this effect is increased even greater. This will improve your general survivability and a bunch of the other usefulness-based stuff. Facet of Blessing, melee final blows start health regeneration. This amps up the ability we get from Combination Blow. In addition to that, melee final blows will start health regeneration for you and nearby allies while you're Transcendent. And then Facet of Balance. Rapidly defeating targets with light damage grants melee energy, and rapidly defeating targets with darkness damage grants grenade energy. In my personal opinion, Facet of Balance is probably the least useful thing here because of how quickly we're able to switch getting our melee and our dodge. And if you use Bomber on your cloak, you can also get your grenade extremely quickly. And if you have it, I would highly recommend getting Facet of Bravery. This is because with Facet of Bravery, defeating targets with grenade final blows grants volatile rounds to your void weapons, and defeating targets with powered melee final blows grant unraveling rounds to your strand weapons. Unraveling rounds, very useful, very nice, highly recommend. And I would recommend this over Facet of Balance simply because of the versatility it provides to you, and Unravel is just a nice debuff to be able to apply. Going into the seasonal mods real quickly, you're going to want to run Unstoppable Sidearm, Overcharged Armory, Winning Hand, Threaded Blast, which has the great synergy with destroying a tangle that is generated by our grapple, as destroying a tangle with a strand weapon creates a larger and more damaging explosion. You can use the various associated sword mods. You could use counter energy, that would be a very useful pick here. I am going to highly recommend both Radiant Orbs, which while using Prismatic, you get Radiant from Orbs of Power, and Galvanic Armor, so that while you are amplified, you take reduced damage from combatants. This will basically make -10, -15 power activities feel like you're playing the game norm for all intents and purposes when you combine it with the facet of protection, as well as the healing you're going to constantly get, and the invisibility. It's going to be very difficult if you run chest armor that gives you resistances to legitimately find yourself in positions where you are pressured and going to die. And then in the final column, I'm going to recommend Shield Crush, so that while you're amplified in Radiant, your grenade recharges faster and deals increased damage. And then Transference, so that you gain increased grenade and melee damage while you are Transcendent. Weapon Final Blows while Transcendent also refund light and dark energy after Transcendence ends. Now, getting into the armor, I'm going to start with the exotic, which is Liar's Handshake. Cross Counter. Using your arc melee ability or being hit by a melee attack will allow you to follow up with an extremely powerful melee counterpunch that will heal you. If you couldn't guess, this does work with all of the other healing we have. You will just heal essentially to full when all of this procs at the same time. It's pretty wild. For your armor mods, it's going to be relatively simple. On your head, you're just going to want Heavy Ammo Finder, Special Ammo Finder, and a Scout mod or whatever siphon for whatever weapons you're using. On your arms, you're going to want double heavy-handed at least. On your chest piece, you're going to want melee damage resistance, sniper damage resistance, and I'm running harmonic resistance because solar damage is pretty common all around the game. On your legs, you're going to want damage increase from weapon surges based on the weapons you're using. I'm going to be using a Void heavy weapon, and as such, I'm going to want these weapon surges to apply to that heavy weapon. In addition to that, I had an extra energy slot, so I threw in Recuperation because the amount of health we get from Liar's Handshake, Combination Blow, and our other abilities just wasn't enough. And then on the cloak, I'm going to be running Bomber with Time Dilation, so our armor charge has a longer duration, and Powerful Attraction. If you really are feeling greedy with it, you can ditch Time Dilation and just run Distribution or Double Bomber to bonus up on top of that ability energy. For the stat split, I'm going to recommend running 10 resilience, as much mobility as you can get. Don't even care about recovery, it doesn't matter. And then you're going to want to max out your discipline because your super timer is not going to be a big thing and your strength is going to come back from your dodge. Now, as far as weapons go, I'm going to recommend in the kinetic slot using the Call. I love this Lead from Gold and One for All role, but I can also recommend Demolitionist, as that will help with improving the amount of uptime on your grapple. If you want to use a weapon that's might be a little bit easier to get or that you might already have, a good Perpetualis with Demolitionist also works, as does an old Sterling with Rewind Wounds and Frenzy, if that's something you are lucky enough to have. I just got this one recently, which is why it only has 42 kills on it. In your energy slot, I'm going to recommend whatever 1-2 punch shotgun you are familiar with. This is because 1-2 punch does in fact work on top of all of these other buffs, and when you 1-2 punch most boss enemies and then hit them with a counter punch, they take a ton of damage. And then in the heavy slot, you have a couple of options here. I love running Leviathan's Breath here. I feel like it does nice, consistent damage. It provides a stun on unstoppable champions and on tormentors, and it's just in general useful. However, I also find myself switching this for Falling Guillotine. I have a Relentless Strikes Whirlwind Blade, and I also have a Surrounded and Tireless Strikes, which are both very good for this. I have an Edged Transit with Envious Assassin and Bait and Switch, and I have a Commemoration with Rapid Hit and Killing Tally. All three of these amazing options that I can highly recommend when you're running in this. Just keep in mind, if you do that, you free up an exotic slot if you want to run something like Quicksilver Storm in your kinetic slot, or if you have some kind of energy weapon you want to use, like if you're using this in a boss phase and you don't care about 1-2 punch, you want to run Still Hunt or something. Either way, that is the build. If you guys enjoyed, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe, and thanks for watching.